Welcome to MojoTalks, and welcome back to Watch Club. This week, once again, we're talking about Legion, because on Watch Club we talk about the biggest shows on TV, and we're talking about Episode 3 of Season 2.
Chapter 11.
Chapter 11, directed by Sarah Adina Smith, written by the dynamic duo of Noah Hawley and Nathaniel Hawthorne.
I wonder if they're going to write every episode this season.
I believe they are.
That's awesome. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, so far we've got a really consistent, deranged tone.
Yep.
I'm all in for that.
Speaking of deranged, right off the top of the show, I think one of your favorite moments, we start talking about Jon Hamm's talking about reality and disorders.
Every week I'm in here raving about Jon Hamm's little vignettes.
As you should be.
This week was no different. We started off with some interesting stories, one about placebo and the nocebo effect, the other about how we pass on our delusions and illnesses onto others. And there was a really great quote, if the idea of illness can be an illness, what else about our reality is actually a disorder? And I think that ties in really well with a little bit what we talked about last week, that this show is always trying to pull the rug out from under us.
Yep.
And these vignettes seem like a little reminder, a little nod from the creators to be like, don't buy into everything that we're telling you.
I think so. I think it's setting us on really shifting grounds. The other thing I think it's doing is like, whenever these narrations, you know, are being more explicit about themes, you get the sense that they're talking about David Haller, the character, but also about people in general, and it's usually in the second person, you know, like how can you be sure about your reality? And I think what that has the effect of doing is like bringing together David and us, making us more similar than you might think, you know, tightening the gap between powerful mutants and regular humans. And I don't think I've seen any other superhero property ever do that so well. Maybe Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones does that really well by going through like victimhood things. Yeah. But I think that's a really admirable thing that they're doing.
I totally agree with you, and it's a tall order considering the weirdness of the show that we're dealing with.
And so my question to you is, if the idea of illness can become illness, what else about our reality is actually a disorder?
Another one of my favorite moments is when we go into the room where the Catalyst victims are being stored in Division 3. I happen to be watching this episode with headphones on, and the sound design when they're walking through looking for the missing victim is really haunting. They've been demonstrating how creepy the sound effect can be throughout the season, but I think this is the first time that we've really had to like inhabit it for a prolonged amount of time, and it was super effective and genuinely terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was something that stuck out to me.
What did you think of that, of it sneaking out through the air duct?
I thought that was really funny, actually.
Yeah, you thought that was funny?
It was a bit of a laugh shading, like kind of, yes, we know, he's crawling through the air duct.
That's right, incredibly secure place where they have, you know, bionic generals and vocoder twins.
That's right.
But hey, you gotta move air through a building somehow, man. This is basic architecture.
Psychics have to breathe.
That's right.
As far as I know.
Okay, well, one of my favorite scenes, I'm gonna say, was the pool scene where we see David and Aubrey Plaza's Lenny and Farouk by the pool. First of all, Lenny in this, just fantastic. I think that in this scene is another chance for Aubrey Plaza to show yet another facet, another measure of depth that we haven't seen before. Just the way that her face looks, it's like a different shape. She's going to a place that we haven't seen her go to before, and I think that that's very admirable, as I've said already in this episode. I'll find new words, I promise. But what we see with both Lenny and Farouk is that we're changing how we see them from villain into like hero of their own narrative. You know, Lenny a bit less so. Maybe Lenny's more like a victim here.
Yeah.
She's going from villain to victim.
You can't help but feel bad.
Yeah, I think you got it. She tries to kill herself with the bubble gun.
Over and over again, hanging herself from over the pool. Yeah, just all kinds of...
And what we see with Farouk is more him being the hero of his own narrative, right? He's saying how he was a king and everything was good, and then along comes this white dude. Is that important? I don't know. That's what he says.
He points it out, yeah.
Yep. With like a really interesting and unexpected like nod to colonialism there. That was interesting and unexpected, but not unfounded.
No, and it was an interesting thing to bring up because from his perspective, he was just the ruler of his domain. He had no issue, and it kind of called into question the entire like concept of superheroism. You know, he asks, who was he to come in and disrupt and tell me my people deserve better? Well, that's basically what superheroes do. They tell you know, other people, hey, you're treating people wrong, I'm going to interfere. And it was interesting to hear his whole speech about villainy and where that word comes from and the importance of words. I thought that scene was really one of the big highlights from the episode.
And to me, where we end off is like the result of all that is we don't know what's going to become of Farouk. You know, like he may be on David's side for now. He may abide by his no killing rule for now. But in the end, he's going to be himself.
Yeah,
you know,
he's out for his own goals.
I.e., we'll see him in the 3rd season.
Yeah, for sure, certainly. There was also the great maze sequences where our cast of heroes is infected. They're catalyzed, and
That's good.
Yeah, they're catalyzed, and we get to see inside their individualized mind mazes.
Yeah,
and they're very different from one another.
Yeah, I thought that was super well done. They had to go, you know, maybe a bit too direct by having Carrie explain, like, oh, this represents a core desire of theirs. But, you know, even still, it was worth it. It was worth it. Just there's a bit of poetry in there, how they rendered that, you know, like Ptolemy just wants to forget because he remembers everything. And so have him in this beautiful setting and he doesn't really remember what he's doing. He's just clipping flowers.
Yeah, just kind of gardening as he goes. It's kind of nice.
When I saw the roses, I was a little bit worried that they're going to start doing like an Alice in Wonderland rose garden theme. I was like, it's a bit, you can do better than that. And they did better than that.
They did better than that.
Surprise, surprise.
As they tend to do on this show. There was also Melanie's text-based adventure game style dark maze, which was all kinds of messed up, but very interesting.
And what a great juxtaposition, just like such good writing, great design to go from this like elaborate, huge world of the Rose Garden into just darkness and text.
Yeah.
Like you can't go do a 180 much more. And interestingly, neither of them were what we were set up to believe these labyrinths look like. You know, when Jon Hamm first describes it as like walls in a desert. Neither of them were that.
Yeah.
So triple kudos on that one.
Yeah, it was really well done. And then, you know, in the end of the episode, skipping ahead a bit, we get to see a glimpse of what Sid's mind maze is, and it's a tundra of some sort. So very excited to see what happens there. We leave off in this episode also with the climactic moment where the monk has taken control, it seems like, of Fukuyama and the vocoder twins, and they are kind of speaking in tandem through the vocoder twins, having a conversation within each other. David quickly teleports them to the roof before he can spill the beans about them working together with the Shadow King. And we get a very interesting confrontation where basically the monk warns that, you know, David may have the right intentions, but letting Farouk have his body back is a big mistake. And before he can get him to convince the monk to spill the beans, the monk just dives off the building, hits the ground with a big old splat. So that's that for the monk. He was great while he lasted.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised and a bit incredulous that David didn't prevent that, which he, like if you can teleport people and things at will now, he didn't do that to a falling body. I don't know. I was a bit incredulous about that, but hey, maybe I don't understand how his power works yet.
I think that's intentional too. They kind of don't want to make it so much like, these are how David's powers work. He is able to do this and not this. It's very much like, what can't David do? Apparently save someone from falling off a roof. Maybe something he can do but chooses not to.
The important note about that to me is that he's not overpowered.
Right.
And I think that when I was talking before about like bridging the gap between us, I think part of that is not overpowering them, which I think is something that the MCU has like gone way beyond now. Everyone's powered up and you don't know what their powers are.
Totally
and
fair.
Anyway.
Let's get into some things that people may have missed. Little tidbits of information scattered throughout the world of Legion. Visuals.
I got one.
Please.
That Minotaur that we saw for the first time, like really foregrounded.
Terrifying.
Yeah. in Melanie's maze, that was a callback from the first episode. Now, I think it remains to be seen whether this is just a Melanie thing or whether we'll see him again in other mazes. I think one thing I pointed out before is that the show is economical with its use of like out there, where did that come from imagery. So I think we're going to see him again, and he'll be a villain. That's a prediction, and maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit here in our order here.
Well, it does go with the concept of mazes and labyrinths to have a minotaur in there, and you know, in the first episode we see it's legless. In the episode we see the Jon Hamm story where the guy cuts off his own leg.
That's true.
These things, everything's connected, man. We get a little reference. Farook calls the monk a typhoid Mary.
They think it's me, and that I'm infecting people. But him. He's toxic. He's like typhoid Mary.
Which happens to be the name of a Marvel villain, a Daredevil villain named Typhoid Mary. She's also a mutant, so a little bit of an X-Men connection.
I mean, I think that's tenuous at best. Typhoid
That's
Mary
fair.
is a historical person.
True.
You know, she was patient zero in a typhoid epidemic.
In the comics, she's Mutant Zero,
Okay.
so there's that. And you know, she's also able to read minds. There are links here and there.
Okay.
I think it was a subtle little, maybe a nod, maybe not. Maybe I'm looking too much into this. I'm always looking for comic book references in
Yep.
Legion. I like to hold up hope that at some point it'll just become a full-on X-Men show. Maybe just for a moment, there'll just be like some claws in there. It could happen.
Here's something you may have missed. Did you notice that, you know this recurring thing of the black goo that the delusion leaves behind it? The cow appearing in the corridors of Division 3 and in Carrie's laboratory. Maybe it was just me, I didn't freeze frame on it, but I'm pretty sure it had goo around it. Goo beneath it, maybe goo on its back. Damn goo back.
The goo cow.
Goo cow.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Goo cow.
Just
that's
keeps
the name.
showing up places. What do you do with a cow? Carrie asks. I mean, we'll see what that means. Like you said, they're economical with their symbols and their elements. So hopefully the cow turns out to be more important than we think.
I think we'll see more.
The other thing that I noticed was in Melanie's maze, we get a text-based game that opens with "You are in a cave," and that reminded me a lot of the 1976 game Colossal Cave Adventure, which was a landmark moment in video gaming.
I did not know this.
A lot of people call it the first open world game, in as much as that you could kind of go where you pleased. It wasn't fully rendered; it just kind of existed in your imagination. But I thought that was like a little subtle nod to the history of the thing that they were using as an element. Those text-based games that are not around anymore, probably for good reason. We have the technology to render worlds these days.
I wonder if there was something hidden in how intent Carrie was on David typing in jump. Like, no, jump.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's like, hey, if you know what it is, tell us in the comments.
Yeah, let us know.
What's up with Carrie wanting to jump?
He's so eager to just take a leap of faith, if you will.
Yeah. And okay, so that's all I got for things you may have missed.
I think it's time we went into the predictions.
Predictions.
Big topic for this episode. We talked already a little bit about Lenny and her predicament. She wants a new body. She wants out of Farook's mind. And I think that makes her a wild card moving forward. If Farook ever were to turn on David and the gang, they have someone on the inside. Maybe having spent all that time with Farook has given Lenny access to things that maybe she doesn't even know she has access to, and that could prove useful in the uncovering of a weakness or some sort of exploit that they can use.
So you're predicting that that Lenny will become an ally and work from the inside to bring down Farook.
An uneasy alliance, as we've said on this show. I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic for sure.
I'm going to go one step further than that. I think there's still 5 episodes left. There's a lot of time for story arcs to play out. I think that she's going to go from ally back to enemy because she's so self-serving. She's gonna help whoever gives her the best offer.
Absolutely.
And seeing as how like Farook is the one who ultimately has control over her, we think he's gonna have the better offer to give. I think that she'll be an enemy after she's an ally. There's my prediction. I got another one also, and this is more cynical, more critical, and maybe I'm not giving the show enough credit, but I'm gonna say it. They already pointed out in that great scene with Farook by the pool, He points out to David that by helping future Sid, he's destroying future Sid. He's changing that timeline, so she will no longer exist.
He's helping her commit suicide, as he puts it, which I thought was an interesting visual.
And this is the first time that David realizes, oh yeah, right, timelines, time travel paradox. And I think it might be the first time that we realize it too. I don't think it'll be the last. I'm always wary whenever sci-fi brings in time travel because they gotta like make up their own rules or like choose which set of rules we already are familiar with. So I think there's gonna be some time travel confusion and disappointing use of time travel. There's my prediction. But I could be wrong. Maybe I'm not giving them enough credit.
I think it's totally fair for you to be skeptical. I have faith in Noah Hawley and Nathaniel Hawthorne. I think they'll find their footing eventually. But I think you're right to be skeptical, and we'll go in it, with our critic glasses on, make sure that they don't overstep in any which way.
Yeah,
and
we'll be a big help.
Yeah, we'll send them an email, a very powerfully worded email if they step beyond the bounds of what we're comfortable with, time travel-wise.
That's right. I'm going to leave off on these sage words. A loss of meaning is not normal.
Love those little intercom messages. That does it for us today on the Watch Club. Tune in every Wednesday. We'll break down the series as it goes along. Be sure to subscribe to MojoTalks. Ring that bell so you know when we release new content. There's tons of great videos on MojoTalks about all your favorite topics. And keep it right here on Watch Club. See ya.